Far above the Arctic Circle, winter lasts most of the year. Snow blankets the ground. Reindeer move slowly across the frozen tundra, and the northern lights dance in the dark sky. This is the homeland of the Sami people, Europe's only recognized indigenous group living this far north. They have called this land home for thousands of years, adapting to a harsh environment where survival depends on skill, tradition, and community. You might expect that, after so many centuries in Scandinavia, the Sami's DNA will be almost identical to that of their Nordic neighbors, Norwegians, Swedes, and Finns. But scientists have discovered something very different. When researchers began studying Sami genetics, they expected a familiar European pattern. Instead, they found a genetic profile unlike any other in Europe. The Sami carry a deep and surprising link to ancient Siberia, thousands of kilometers away. This connection is so strong that it stands out clearly in modern DNA testing. Even after millennia of life in Europe, how did this Siberian heritage arrive in the far north? Why is it still visible today when so many other ancient lineages have disappeared? Some clues lie in the movements of prehistoric hunter-gatherers after the Ice Age. Others are hidden in the Sami's unique adaptations to Arctic life, traits that help process vitamin D in long winters, endure extreme cold, and thrive on a traditional high-fat diet. Yet, even with these discoveries, important pieces of the puzzle remain missing. Scientists are still trying to untangle the full story. And the more they study Sami DNA, the more questions they uncover about migration, isolation, and the deep human history of the far north. The Sami are the indigenous people of Europe's far north, living across northern Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia's Kola Peninsula. Their homeland, known as Sápmi, stretches across 4 modern countries, yet has no political borders of its own. For centuries, the Sami have followed the rhythms of the Arctic, moving with the seasons, fishing the rivers, hunting in the forests, and herding reindeer across vast open landscapes. Their traditional languages belong to the Uralic family, which also includes Finnish, Estonian, and several languages spoken far away in Siberia. This linguistic link hints at an ancient eastward connection, but language is just one part of their identity. The Sami's cultural heritage, their music, clothing, and way of life, has been shaped by their environment and passed down through generations. It's important to remember that cultural identity and genetic ancestry are not always the same thing. Someone can speak a Sami language and live by Sami traditions without sharing the exact same genetic history as others in the community. In the same way, genetic heritage can stretch back thousands of years beyond what we see in recorded history or living culture. Life in the Arctic demands resilience and adaptability. The Sami have long mastered skills to survive in a place where the sun barely rises in winter and never sets in summer. They make clothing from reindeer hides, navigate frozen landscapes, and preserve food for the long, dark months. This close relationship with the land has influenced not only their traditions, but also their biology. Over thousands of years, their ancestors developed traits that helped them thrive in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. Still, the Sami story isn't frozen in time. Their past is complex, involving ancient migrations, culture exchange, and adaptation, and their DNA reflects that long, intricate journey. The story of the Sami begins long before there was a word for Sami. At the end of the last ice age, around 10,000 years ago, massive glaciers that once covered northern Europe began to melt. As the ice retreated, it revealed a raw, open landscape, a land of rivers, forests, and tundra waiting to be explored. The first people to arrive in these northern regions were small bands of hunter-gatherers. Some came from the west, following the retreating ice from areas that are now parts of Western Europe. Others may have journeyed from the east, crossing to what is now Russia, bringing with them different tools, traditions, and perhaps languages. Archaeological finds tell us that these early settlers were resourceful. They hunted reindeer, fished in icy rivers, and used stone tools finely shaped for life in the north. Over time, these groups would have met, traded, and sometimes mixed, blending their cultures and bloodlines. But this mixing was not even across the region. Evidence suggests that the ancestors of the Sami kept stronger ties to Eastern peoples than other Europeans did. This could have been due to continued movement of people from Siberia into the far north, or simply because northern communities stayed more connected with each other across the Arctic than with farming societies farther south. These early inhabitants set the stage for the genetic legacy we see in the Sami today. They carry with them pieces of a story that stretches back across continents, a story that will be preserved, in part, through thousands of years of life in the Arctic. One of the most surprising discoveries about the Sami's past came not from archaeology, but from genetics. When scientists began mapping their DNA, they expected to find patterns similar to other northern Europeans, perhaps with a few unique local traits. Instead, the results revealed something extraordinary, a clear and significant link to ancient Siberian peoples. This Siberian genetic signal is not a small trace left by distant contact. It makes up a large part of the Sami's ancestry and stands out strongly compared to their Nordic neighbors. While Norwegians, Swedes, and Finns share most of their genetic heritage with other Europeans, the Sami carry a component that connects them directly to populations far to the east. Researchers believe the Siberian ancestry entered Europe thousands of years ago, possibly through multiple migration waves across the Arctic. These movements likely happened long before the rise of agriculture in the north, when the Arctic was home to scattered groups of mobile hunter-gatherers. Some of these groups carried genetic lineages from Siberia, and over time, they became part of the communities that would eventually be recognized as Sami. This connection also links the Sami to other Uralic-speaking peoples, such as the Nenets and Kani of northern Siberia, as well as to more distant relatives in Central and Eastern Asia. The similarities are not just linguistic. They are written in the DNA itself, in segments that have survived through thousands of years of isolation and adaptation. The presence of the Siberian heritage raises fascinating questions. Was it the result of one major migration, or many smaller ones spread over centuries? Did these Eastern groups bring new technologies, survival skills, or cultural traditions that helped life in the Arctic? While some answers are emerging, the full picture remains incomplete, and that's part of what makes the Sami's genetic story so compelling. Life above the Arctic Circle demands more than just warm clothing and shelter. It requires the body itself to adapt. Over thousands of years, the Sami developed genetic traits that helped them survive in one of the coldest, darkest environments on Earth. One of the most important challenges in the Arctic is the lack of sunlight during long winters. Without sunlight, the body struggles to produce vitamin D, which is essential for healthy bones and overall health. Studies suggest that the Sami carry genetic variations that help them process and use vitamin D more efficiently, reducing the risk of deficiency in the dark season. Their traditional diet also played a role in shaping their biology. For centuries, the Sami lived on a high-fat, high-protein diet, reindeer meat, fish, and other animal products rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Certain genetic traits help them metabolize these foods effectively, turning fat into a reliable source of energy in cold conditions. Cold resistance itself may also be partly written into their DNA. While clothing, fire, and shelter are crucial, some genetic markers suggest that the Sami, like the Inuit of North America and Greenland, have physiological adaptations that help maintain body temperature and energy levels in freezing climates. These traits are not unique to the Sami alone. Other Arctic peoples have developed similar adaptations, but the way they appear in Sami genetics tells its own story. It's a record of thousands of years of life in the far north, of human bodies shaped by an unforgiving environment, and of survival strategies passed down both culturally and genetically. Still, these adaptations are only one piece of the puzzle. The Sami's DNA holds mysteries that go far beyond what we can explain with environment alone, and that leads to the part of the story scientists still struggle to solve. For all that science has uncovered about the Sami's ancestry, there are still deep gaps in the story. Researchers can clearly see the Siberian connection, the Arctic adaptations, and the traces of ancient hunter-gatherers, but how all these pieces fit together is still uncertain. One mystery lies in the timing. Genetic data suggests multiple waves of migration into the far north, but exactly when each group arrived and how they mixed is still debated. Some scientists think the Siberian ancestry came in a single, large movement thousands of years ago. Others believe it trickled in over many centuries, blending slowly with existing populations. Another puzzle is isolation. The Sami lived alongside Nordic farming communities for over 1,000 years, yet their genetic profile remained distinct. Was this due to geographic separation in the remote north? Or did cultural boundaries limit mixing between groups? The evidence is incomplete, leaving room for multiple interpretations. And then there are the unexplained genetic markers, DNA segments whose origins are unclear. They don't match the profiles of known ancient European or Siberian populations. These could represent the remnants of now vanished groups, people who left no other trace in the archaeological record. If that's true, the Sami may carry some of the last surviving genetic evidence of entire human populations lost to history. For now, the Sami's genetic story is like a partly finished puzzle. The edges are in place, some sections are complete, but entire portions are still blank. And the more researchers study it, the more they realize that the full picture may be even more surprising than we imagine. Over the years, a number of myths have surrounded the Sami and their origins. One of the most common ideas is that they're the pure descendants of Europe's very first people, an unbroken line stretching back to the Ice Age without change. It's a romantic image, but it isn't quite true. The reality is far more complex and far more interesting. The Sami's ancestry is a blend. Ancient European hunter-gatherers, Siberian migrants from thousands of kilometers away, and later influences from surrounding Nordic populations. This mixture happened over many centuries, shaped by both movement and isolation, by trade and tradition. Rather than being a frozen snapshot past, the Sami are living proof of how cultures and peoples adapt, mix, and endure. Their story is one of survival, not just of people in a harsh land, but of a unique genetic legacy that still holds clues to our shared human history. The Sami stand as a living bridge between Europe's deep past and the present day. Their culture preserves traditions shaped by the Arctic over thousands of years, and their DNA carries clues to ancient migrations that span continents. Yet even now, science hasn't unraveled the full story. Some parts remain hidden, locked in genetic patterns that still defy explanation. What's certain is that the Sami remind us of how human history is never simple. It's a web of journeys, connections, and adaptations written across both our cultures and our genes. Which part of the Sami story surprised you most? The Siberian connection, the Arctic adaptations, or the mystery scientists still can't solve? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoy exploring the hidden stories in our DNA, make sure to subscribe for more journeys into humanity's genetic past.